Good evening. Just hopping on here a minute before, and I am just going to start tagging some friends, let them know that I am on. How is everybody doing? Let's see. Robin, hi Robin. Hey, by the way, Robin, I really enjoy your posts if you are hearing me. I always learn something every time I read your post, so thank you. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see. John, is John Bailey on? Yeah, I think so. Hi, John. I'm just tagging some friends, guys. Help me let people know that we are on. Today's gonna be a fun one, I think. Might get a little personal, at least for me. But I think it's gonna be really good. Hi, Kathy. I see you're on here. Hi, John. How are you? It is a beautiful day today, sunny. Got up to 80 degrees. It's windy. We have the windows open, so hopefully you don't get too much interference on the microphone. Lisa's here. Hi, Lisa. Hey, no worries, no worries. You can catch up later. Appreciate you letting us know. Yeah, it's why I like recording them, so that way you can get to them at a later time if you need to. So be blessed on that. Ah, John, fat in the Lord. Yeah, me too, man. I feel like I'm gaining some weight, but I'm about to. Busy season for me is getting ready to start, so I'm gonna be sweating a lot more than what I have been previously. It's starting to warm up, so yeah. All right, so it is a minute after 7, so I guess we should go ahead and start. So we're going to stay in Colossians chapter 1. I'm going to open up this big old Bible and see if I can keep the pages under control. So I've read this verse to you guys in this translation before. But rather than reading the whole section that I've been reading with you guys each time, I'm just going to read verses 21 in chapter 1. So chapter 1, 21 verses 23. And then we're going to focus, I'm going to focus on verse 23 and see what happens. So once you were alienated and hostile in your minds, expressed in your evil actions. But now he has reconciled you by his physical body through his death, to present you holy, faultless, and blameless before him. If indeed you remain grounded and steadfast in the faith and are not shifted away from the hope of the gospel that you heard. This gospel has been proclaimed in all creation under heaven, and I, Paul, have become a servant of it. So yeah, we're going to focus there on verse 23. And my computer fell asleep, so give me a second. I'm going to log back in. Okay, here we are. So... yeah, okay, so 23. So if indeed you remain grounded and steadfast in the faith and are not shifted away from the hope of the gospel that you heard. This gospel has been proclaimed in all creation under heaven. And I, Paul, have become a servant of it. So let's talk about this. So let's start off by not being afraid of the word if. For me, personally, when I come across a word like that, if, I start from the perspective or the foundation of remembering that perfect love casts out all fear of punishment. That's where I start. as well as God is love. And that God is not conditional. He is not in the business of transactions. I know that probably most of you have already, you know this, but it's good to be reminded. We know that God is not in the transactional business because we don't see this behavior in Jesus. And it's Jesus who says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He's the exact representation of the invisible God, as well as how we've been reading in Colossians in that song, right? But rather than seeing that behavior, that transactional behavior in Jesus, we hear the words of love. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Right? Acknowledging the evil condition of our hearts and minds towards our God. And so we see Mr. Perfect Love moves forward to the cross and into death without fear of punishment on our behalf and for us. I mean, did you get that? This is pretty big. So perfect love is beheld in the incarnation of Christ. He is perfect and has no fear. The spotless Lamb. Are you hearing me? I've always approached that verse asking the question, what is perfect love and how can I demonstrate it? Instead of asking, who is perfect love? There's a big difference. Come on. Are you guys there? Are you hearing this? Okay. So, what happens if we forget who we belong to? I think this is what Paul is alluding to in this verse. We forget that we're blameless. We forget that we are faultless. And we forget that we are holy in Him. Then we begin to believe that we must achieve holiness and acquire a status of blameless and faultless apart from Him to be accepted. But it's not God that needs to be convinced of our completion in Christ. We do, and He will convince you. It is His work that saves you, not your work. Okay, let's keep moving forward here. This isn't going to be a very long one, but I think it's going to be meaty enough to chew on for a little bit. So, I think here as I'm reading, Paul gives us a very, very clear direction. That we must continue in his instruction and to not so easily forget the gospel that we heard. And gives us a warning of what happens if we don't heed his instructions, which is we forget. In other words, he's saying, do not move from here. No matter what others say, don't go back to attempting to fulfill the law. It is finished. Be reluctant to leave the gospel. I think this is it's a correction in love here is what I'm reading. So let's talk about faith. What is faith? So I learned over the past few years that it's better to ask, who is faith? So let me start by asking the question, a theological one. Whose faith saves you? Is it your faith that saves you? Or is it his faith that saves you? Is it both yours and his that saves you? If it is yours, if you favor that it is your faith that saves you, then how does one know he has enough faith for his own salvation? And in addition, at least to me, would imply that it is not finished. If it's both your faith and his faith, then indeed he is not a God who is love but conditional and transactional, which to me sounds like another gospel. The good news is that he saves us, not that we get to save ourselves. So, faith is not some magical power that we conjure up. I mean, even Bible Hub agrees. Faith is not a person. I'm sorry, faith is a person. Furthermore, here's where it gets really great for me. Faith is the persuasion of God. And in Christ, we see the persuasion of mankind to behold our origin. It's the faith of Christ. He persuades us to believe in him. I hope you caught that. So, and even in places where the Bible uses the words your faith or their faith, these are referring to the Christ in you and his faith in you at work, not your faith, not my faith. He is the gift. So do you remember the first time you heard the gospel? Do you remember how it was stunning? The message itself was a shock. And when you first heard his voice within you, confirming the message within your heart, and once he convinced you, you begin to feel the gravity of the message and Mr. Message. And that's how we stay accountable to him. It is by him. Paul I think, continues to say astonishing words in here, right? He says, in all creation under heaven. You could also say there, within the whole of the cosmos. So I want to talk about the word heaven. But I also want to say that I'm just putting this out there for thought. Just as a little token to think about if you want to. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. So heaven, the word heaven is in the Bible, is used to describe the sky. It's also used to describe outer space. It is also used to describe the dwelling place of God. But how many of you know that Paul tells us that God tabernacles in us, and that he has made his home within you? Therefore, you are heavenly, and he is pleased to be with you. And also, remember this, that Paul says that we have been given the mind of Christ. So we know that heaven, at least for me, that heaven is not the place in which God lives as in a place, but rather heaven is a representation of God. At least this is how Mr. Jeff A. Benier puts it. He is a scholar in the alphabet, language, and culture of the Bible. And just for a little bit of reference, if you'd like to ponder it further, in 1 Kings 8:27, where Solomon is saying that not the heavens nor the extravagant building can contain him, or the outer heavens, referencing outer space, or beyond the sky, what they can see, is able to contain him. So it's not too long, but that's what I have for you guys. I hope you found it intriguing, thoughtful, and I'm kind of debating on whether or not I should say something that's on my mind or not before I finish it off. I want to share, I think I do want to say this. So this is something that is really near and dear to my heart. I haven't really shared it with too many people other than the ones that are just kind of nearby. I know if I say it, I'm going to need to give a little bit of a foundation, but I think I have a little bit here in the explanation of faith, what it is and what it isn't. I remember about 3 years ago. So I've been pondering this for about 3 years. A little more, a little less. And I remember when God told me to renounce my faith. Don't take it out of context. Listen to the words I'm saying, because it could certainly be taken out of context. To renounce my faith, my faith, my work, my ability to believe, or lack of. And I remember feeling, when that happened, I remember this incredible peace, or this joy, or this letting go overwhelm me, where I essentially had to quit trusting in myself and begin trusting in Him. I mean, you would talk about trust. For me, growing up in the church, this is so backwards from what I was taught in church. And for me, there's a lot of work, a lot of do, a lot of must, a lot of prayer, a lot of intercession, a lot of evangelism, a lot of go to this conference, go to that conference, read this book, read that book. Always working at mustering up some kind of belief on behalf of myself or on behalf of others. But I encountered truth. I encountered the one person that does have faith. The one person that has faith to believe in me. Not just in me, but in me as well. So there you go. That's my little vulnerable spiel. Faith is certainly a very beautiful topic. It's one that's near and dear to my heart, and so I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And I'm going to wrap this up, and then I'm going to open up the hangout room within the study, and I hope to see you there. All right.